All right, welcome to another episode of the All Systems Go podcast, where we invite founders and digital marketers alike to discuss strategies and software used to build automated marketing and sales systems that scale. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, the founder of Automation Bridge. And on this episode, I have the pleasure of interviewing Mark Colgan, and he's a entrepreneur and revenue leader responsible for increasing revenue across a small portfolio of companies where he leverages his 13 years of B2B sales and marketing and recruitment. He splits his time now as a co-founder of Speak On Podcast and mentoring B2B startups. He's a Techstars 2018 alumni and a regular speaker within the B2B SaaS industry. His work has been published. Get ready, everybody. By SaaS Stock, Mailshake, Pipedrive, Lead Shift, Limlist, Sugar CRM, Bear Metrics. That's just to name a few. Mark, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man?
Hey Chris, really good to be here. I'm really looking forward to geeking out with over some automations. There's not many people in my life that I get to do this with, so I'm glad you're one of them.
Oh man, I have to say, listeners, Mark surprised me. I mean, we jumped right in and he talked about a current automated flow that he's working on. And I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna save that to the end because what you all are in for a treat for is Mark is gonna walk through the top 10. Now he's got more than 50, by the way. But he's gonna walk through the top 10 B2B marketing automations that you could be leveraging. And the reason why this is important for me, Mark, is because I've got a lot of B2C in my crowd. But the B2B is growing and they always
Mhm.
kind of feel left out. They're like, hey, how can we use marketing automation? We've got account-based marketing, or maybe there's a parent-child relationship in their CRM and they're trying to figure out what can we do? How can we use
Mhm.
marketing automation? We want to jump into it. So you can be the voice of
I'll
the
do my
voiceless
best.
in the B2B space for marketing automation. But first, I know I introed you. I just wanted to let you give you the floor a little bit and tell people a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So, I actually studied marketing at university. This is back in 2005 to 2009. And we didn't learn anything about digital marketing. It was just like, yeah, websites are important. And I was like, well, this hasn't really got me the return on investment I thought I was going to get. Um, I did a degree which in the third year, you don't study, you go and work for a year, and then you go back and finish your degree. It's something that's quite
Mm,
popular in the UK, and it's a really awesome idea. But I actually, because I wasn't learning much about marketing, and all of the marketing kind of placements, like internships, were just like a T-boy, I was just like, nah, this isn't for me. I want some more accountability, some responsibility. So I actually got a job in recruitment. And then when I
mm,
finished uni, so I did a year, did well, and I was invited to join the company again when I graduated. So I actually started my career in recruitment for about 4 years. So I worked for recruitment agencies and then went in house. And there was actually a job that I was recruiting for, which was no, online marketing manager. So it wasn't even called digital
mm.
back then. And I spoke to the
Wow.
guy who was leaving, wanted to find out why he was leaving. And I was like, this is a good opportunity for me because I know how the recruitment process works and what I need to say, what I need to put on my CV. And I'd actually started to build a website for my dad, who had a company, and a good friend of mine who's a personal trainer. And to this day, they still rank pretty high up for these keywords because I read The Dummy's Guide to Internet Marketing and
Mm,
Pimp My Site, which is all about SEO. Um, in the end, I didn't work with a large company. I went for a smaller company because I thought I'd learn a lot quicker. I then spent the next 4 or 5 years as the senior marketing manager. I basically got involved with HubSpot and
mhm,
I knew how to work HubSpot. So companies would hire me to kind of implement HubSpot and do what I did in the last job, but just do it at a bigger scale. So I did that for a few years, got to the age of 30. I'm 34 now. And I decided to take a year off and I took a sabbatical with no job to come back to. But I went for
mm.
6 months in Southeast Asia and 6 months in South America. But whilst I was away, my old boss called me and said, hey, Mark, you know that HubSpot thing you know about? Could you do it for one of my friends who's got a business? They're happy to pay you. Chris, I really didn't want to work. Um, so, so he said, just put in a figure, put any amount, and I'll do the selling part of it. And if they say yeah, just be happy with that amount. So I put that amount in, which I thought, okay, if they say yes to this, I don't think they will. I'll
Yep.
do their HubSpot implementation. They turned out and said yes. And really, it was the turning point for me because I realized I could be paid quite well for the skill that I'd acquired and do it for multiple people, for multiple companies from somewhere like Santiago, Chile, where I was. So from living and staying in hostels, I went and stayed in like a really, really nice hotel, spent a bit of the money there and did the HubSpot implementation. So I'm almost up to current date. I then decided not to go back to like a 9 to 5, and I set up my own marketing, sales and marketing automation consultancy. So I was
Mm,
working with mainly B2B SaaS brands, helping them work out how to implement marketing automation, how to tie that to their CRM, what sales automation and outbound software should they be using and considering, how does that all tie together in the tech stack. Did that for 2 years, enjoyed it, but got a little bit fed up of riding the roller coaster of being always busy, and then the projects finish, and then I have to do sales again. So I then was invited to come and run around 100 person remote company that did lead research and data enrichment. Did that for just
mm,
over a year, kind of fixed a lot of things, added a lot of automation to the things that could be automated. And then I got the itch to kind of build my own thing. And that was June 2020, where I co-founded Speak On Podcasts, where I spend most of my time today. And yeah, we're up to around 20 team members. We've booked over 1,000 interviews for our customers. So yeah, sales, marketing, recruitment, I've been through a lot.
love it, and you can see it. You could see it. I definitely experienced it. You could see all of your experience come into play when we talk about Speak on Podcast. I was just mentioning to Mark before we jumped on the podcast how um, I've been on the receiving end of some of the people using his company to reach out to me to be a guest. And you can tell your experience and just how you've even outlined that whole process outshines a lot because the type of outreach that I get, sometimes they're good guests,
Mhm.
but because of the lack of quality of the outreach, I'm just turned off. Just like, you
Yeah,
know what? You could have put more effort in that.
yeah.
You could have made that a little more personal.
Yeah, Chris, we had a new joiner go through our onboarding process, so starting to work with us, and his main role would have been as a booking agent. And he was like, "Why don't you just automate this? Send the same message out to hundreds of podcasts." And I was like, "You don't get
Mhm.
it. That's why we're different. That's why we do
Yes,
so well." Needless to say, he's not working for us because he couldn't.
yes.
He's just looking for the opportunities to automate. And I feel
Yep.
like that's quite a good segue, I guess, into what we're going to talk about today because everybody's looking for the silver bullet of what they should automate. And I've got some opinions about thinking about that before you start even automating a thing.
Yes, yes. So let's jump right into it. We know your background, we know your business, and we know the podcast. So everybody's ready. I'll give you the floor. I'll jump in where appropriate, but let us all just take our pen and paper out and let's start writing notes. Mark, where would you say you would start when it comes to approaching marketing automation for business to business in
Sure.
the
So
B2B industry?
when we're going to talk about B2B, I'm going to kind of cover marketing and sales because
Good,
for
good.
me, they are aligned. And yes, you might have different groups and teams. You still need that glue connecting the marketing to the sales and vice versa.
Yep.
I think before we start saying, what the top 10 automations are, and Chris, you might need to write down how many I've done because I could probably go on. So
Yeah.
stop me when I get to 10. The most important thing to remember is that not everything should be automated. Just because but just because you're selling to businesses, people make the mistake of automating too much, and really, it's still a human at the end of the day who's going to be receiving your messages or be on the receiving end of that automation. So number
Yeah.
one, don't forget that it's still a human, and some
Yep.
things just shouldn't be automated, or they should be maybe semi-automated, so not 100% automated. And
Yeah.
that goes on to my second point, which is make sure that you're automating the right things and not just automating a process because it sounds like you should. I've worked with a lot of companies, and when I was a consultant, a lot of my time was undoing a lot of the stuff that had been done previously. You're
Yeah.
shaking your head, Chris, and nodding. You've been there as well. So I think know what to automate is most important. And I always suggest starting off manually and then looking at which bits of the automation you can automate and what you should automate as well. As I said, not everything should be automated.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there because this is easier said than done, everybody. I've got my hand raised for a reason. And as an experienced automation professional, we call them automation service providers. I have to catch myself because my natural inclination is automation. So I even have to say, you know what? Let's send that email manual first. If I'm talking to someone on my team, let's send it manual first and see if it gets a response. If it gets a response, okay, now we can start to think about putting it in an autoresponder. Or, you know what? Before we build a sales page, let's put that in an email. Like, let's have a conversation so we at least know the language to be speaking or not in order to get them to take the next step, right?
Mhm.
So I love the start manual first. But I just want to caution everybody, it does not matter what level of expertise you're at. You will fall victim to just, where I can automate that, especially when you've got a history, Mark, right? When you've got
Mhm.
a this long trail of successful automations, you just want
Yeah.
to jump in. So it's always a quick check to say, wait a minute, do I need to automate this? Let me just do a manual first, you know. And a lot of times, the manual effort, especially if it's a new process, you'll realize like, oh man, I'm glad I didn't put a whole lot of effort in there because it wasn't as big as I thought it would be.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, so you
Absolutely.
save yourself.
Yeah, and I think sometimes automations can, if there's human input, there's an opportunity for human error, and that can break an
Yes.
automation. And
Yes.
sometimes the time it costs to maintain and fix automations, it's not worth it. Just do it manually, because
Yep.
as you mentioned, Chris, I think we automate everything, and it's like, oh, we only use this automation once a year. Was it really worth the effort to go
Yes.
and put it in? I don't know about you, Chris, but I try and simplify automation, just saying that there's three main steps. There's a trigger event, so something usually
Mhm.
happens. There's a condition most of the time. So if this is the case, then uh, go to the next step. And the final step is an action. I
Mm.
find that that's quite a simple way to explain it. So when it comes to some of the automations, I like to think about optimizing what we currently have before we put anything new into the top of the funnel. And in B2B world, that's lead generation or demand generation. I always like to start with that bucket and plug as many holes of that bucket so that we don't have things leaking out of it once we start the
Yes.
top of the funnel activity. So I guess I'll start with some automations which are around optimizing what you currently have at the moment. And I'm going to be keeping these in mind in terms of like acquisition, conversion, and retention. And I'll try and touch upon all of these at some point, Chris.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so the first one in terms of acquisition, a lot of companies throw up live chat on their website. If you've got a certain amount of traffic coming to your website, I'm not sure what that actual number should be today.
Mhm.
It might be worth having live chat on there. But most people
Sure.
just install live chat and then don't take advantage of the automations that can be put in place. So, for example, knowing that a customer has visited the homepage, they've looked at the features, and then they've gone onto the pricing page, you can trigger a specific message which is geared around the pricing. You know what their
Mm.
journey has been, so you could be more tailored and more personalized to their experience. Likewise, understanding that a person is on your website for the fifth time, you can trigger a different message to them because they're obviously interested in something, yet they just haven't reached out to you just yet, for
Okay.
example. So, being smart with the way that you're segmenting your live chat visitors and not treating everybody as equal in the sense that every visitor that comes to your website should get the same, hey, how are you today? So be a
Yep.
little bit more creative
Yep.
with the messaging on there, and make sure that's tied to your CRM as well, because you kind of want to play it safe with your messaging, just in case they are a paying customer and you haven't got that connected to your CRM, and then you're asking them a question like, "Hey, do you have any questions about pricing?" But they're already a customer, so
Yes.
you don't want to trip up a little bit. So you always have to think about the different outcomes and eventualities.
Yeah, that's really good. We talk about segmentation a lot. Of course, it's the heartbeat of automation. It's what keeps the blood pumping.
Yeah.
Is segmentation and understanding based on behavior where people are at in the journey. So I love the fact that you added the CRM
Hmm.
because you have to store it somewhere. And as I work with a lot of startups, Mark, you know, whether it's seed series, series A, series B, and a lot of them really struggle around implementing a CRM. And I'm
Yeah.
telling them, I say, you're experiencing a pain that you don't even realize is a pain because it's just been the norm because you've never had a CRM.
Hmm.
You need a
Hmm.
central place to store that information, and it makes your marketing and sales a lot easier. So, all right, love that one
Absolutely.
about live chat, man.
No worries. Okay, so let's keep the customer journey or the buyer journey going that way. So
All right.
let's say you've got a visitor on your website, they've engaged in chat. Now they want it for B2B, they've got two options. Usually it's speak to sales, or which could be book a demo, or it could
Yep.
be start a free trial. Let's go into booking a demo because B2B isn't always as simple as that B2C, that product led. It's not quite there for every product. So when somebody's booking a demo with you, even though that you're not going to be able to do that demo immediately, make sure that once they filled out that form, they get an automatic email to say, "Hey, Chris, thanks for showing your interest in product XY. We're really looking forward to scheduling the demo with you. Here's information of how we go to the next steps, and here's a video overview of what you're
Mm,
going to see in that demo."
yep.
Because when the salesperson is doing the demo, it's great to give the prospect some additional information so that you can save a bit of time and they can come to that call a lot more educated. You get through the discovery process a lot quicker and speed up the sales cycle overall because they're already primed.
Yep.
Because you don't want to spend the first 10 minutes of the demo just showing them how the dashboard works and where they can invite new users. Like, let them have a look, give them a taste of it. One, they'll be more interested, and secondly,
Hmm.
they'll have better questions. I've been in this situation where somebody's asked me, they've seen the video demo, and they're like, "Hey, Mark, look, thanks, saw the video, it looks great. I just really have a question about integrations. Does it integrate with X, Y, Z?" So
Mm,
and that's a very, very powerful question to receive as a salesperson, because there's a lot of buying intent. When people are starting to think about integrations, they're starting to think about how will this product fit in my workflow, in my current setup.
yeah.
So yeah, that would be my second one. Have an autoresponder. So again, similar to what you'll hear in B2C, but with a demo, have that autoresponder so people know that you've received that information and they understand what the next steps are.
Yeah. And I gotta highlight here preparation and because sometimes it's not just one person on that call.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's it's multiple people on that call, and people often overlook how valuable preparation is. So when they have that
Hmm.
video, when you've given them the opportunity to come to that meeting educated, what you're really saying is, "I value your time
Hmm.
just the same as I value mine." So instead of us jumping on, yeah, we'll go through the niceties and, hey, how's it going? How's the weather? Right. But
Yeah.
right after
Yeah.
that, we can jump right into the meat and potatoes. We don't have to dig because I gave you your shovel
Yeah.
before you got on. So
100%.
we could just go whatever depth you were able to get to prior to. Let's just start there and
Yeah.
get more out of this meeting.
Definitely, and even asking the question in that autoresponder, or maybe in your interaction with that prospect before the demo, is like, "Hey, what is the one thing that you're going to enjoy looking at, or what is the one thing that you want to see in this demo?" I can't tell you how many times I've been so in a similar position to you, Chris, working with different CRMs. So I'm not going to name and shame, but I've sat on a number of demos and discovery calls where the first slide is like, "We were founded in 2002 and
Yeah.
da, 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 da. We have
Yeah.
3,000 customers." And it's just like the reality is your prospect does not care about you as the business. They care about the
Yeah.
problem that they have and they want help solving it. I didn't mention I do some sales coaching. I teach a course in outbound prospecting and cold email. And one of the things I say in both of those courses is remove yourself. You are not the hero, you're the guide. Your customer's the
Mm,
hero, and it's your job to be the guide on their hero's journey.
yeah.
So yeah, so remove any of that ego from your slides and just start with what they want to listen to, because I feel that goes quite neatly into another automation. And I think for me, a lot of times automation is usually the public facing automations when it comes to marketing and sales, but
Yeah.
there's so much you can do behind the scenes. So for an example,
Yes.
that form gets submitted or the demo request is booked. If you're using Slack as a way to communicate with your team, you can send a notification to Slack to say, Chris has booked a demo on the 16th of December at 3 p.m. This salesperson is assigned to that person. Or it might be that you don't automatically assign salespeople. You might need to look at additional information. So that way you can do that in Slack, and you can enrich that information as well if you're using tools like Clearbit or other kind of data providers, because it could take
Mhm.
the person's email address and work out, okay, this is an enterprise company that has over 3,000 staff members or employees, sorry. And that is actually for Jane, because Jane is our enterprise sales rep. And you can get that done all automatically with some automation.
Yeah, and I love Slack. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that I love Slack, and I love sending notifications about the customer journey to Slack.
Me
And
too.
one of the things that I find myself doing all the time, I think the official term for this, Mark, is called deep linking. But
Okay.
in the Slack notification, I always have a link back to the contact record or back to the form submission software, wherever
Yeah.
somebody may need to go and, like, look at more detail. I
hmm
always like to link there because it becomes like central command or
Yeah.
central collab center.
Yeah.
And everybody, so anybody, I've got multiple channels, and based on the channel, of course, the people are in there appropriately. So when something comes in, that message is in there, and instead of them asking me, "Hey, Chris, what did
Mm.
they say? Hey, what about this?" They can click the link and it
Yeah.
goes right to the file or the contact record.
Chris, I think really as kind of marketing automation people, we're trying to avoid the amount of times people need to ask us a question in the nicest way possible, right?
The
We
nicest
we
way.
want to have conversations. We love working with people, but we really don't want to answer these simple questions when you're right. And look, take a personal example. I live in Lisbon, Portugal, but I'm from the UK. Paying bills, I have to use a Portuguese card, which I only just top up with the money to pay the bill. I have a recurring calendar appointment with a link in that calendar appointment which says the internet company's name and a link to the payment portal to pay it.
Yep.
Just putting that link in the calendar appointment, it doesn't sound like an automation, but I've just saved myself a tiny bit of time, and I'm making things a no-brainer, a no questions asked. And I think if you take that same sort of methodology to business automations, whether that B2C or
Yep.
B2B, it's quite a clever way of just removing the thought that has to go into it.
That's it, Mark. If we think once, we don't wanna
Yeah.
have to think again. We've
Yeah.
made this decision, it worked, therefore, let's put some kind of structure in place so that we don't have to think again or go through that same thinking, man. Love it.
Absolutely. So we're using the same example. This sales
Yep.
lead. I'm making this story up as we go, Chris, as well. So stop me
Even
if I'm,
better.
I'm going off on a tangent. But this demo that's been booked, that was Jane is now going to be the salesperson who's going to speak to this demo. Because we've maybe assigned that to Jane, that could be done automatically through your CRM. Because what's important is that demo request also goes into your CRM, not just Slack. So you're likely to have multiple steps in your automation. It will either be automatically assigned to Jane using a if this then that statement. So if the
Yeah.
company size is more than 3,000, then assigned to Jane. So then what happens? Jane gets this fictional, fantastic saleswoman called Jane gets a notification via her CRM that a new deal has been added in her name. And what you can also do is then get it to set up a draft email, which Jane can send out to the customer. The draft email has a slight template, which is hi, looking
Mhm.
forward to speaking to you. I'm going to be the person that's going to speak to you on this date. So you can merge in all of this information, but it allows Jane to add a little bit of personalization. An
Yes.
example being is Jane can see that the prospect lives in North Carolina in the States. Jane was at an NC State football game a few years ago, and Jane can mention that and put that
Yep.
in the draft, or anything that that Jane has at her disposal to find out something that's really relevant and personal to the individual. Think about the difference that makes in terms of that person's experience with the company. They haven't even done the demo yet, but this person within 24 hours has sent me a personalized looking forward to speaking with you, and also picked up on something that was on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Pretty powerful stuff.
It is the power, Mark, is the simplicity,
hmm
right? being able to have a draft email prepared for you where you just got to go in, and when we talk about personalization, a lot of people get in the mindset that they have to write an email from scratch for every new person. Sometimes tweaking a word, Mark, can
Yeah.
personalize the email, you know? So it
Yeah.
usually doesn't require more than a couple sentences
No.
at max, you know? So, yeah.
No, and it's also an opportunity to put your personality into it. And I think it's a really important thing to mention
Yeah.
in the B2B world, because again, we think we're selling to businesses. But in my emails that I send on a Friday, as cheesy as it sounds, I say happy Friday. Like,
Yeah.
because I know no one else is not many people will be doing that. And not that I have an issue where I want attention all the time, but I do want to stand out in the inbox of the people that I potentially want to work with. Because there is so many people vying for their business, and I want them to think of me as an extended friend, someone that they know, like, and trust, because that's ultimately how people make decisions. So by doing these little things all the time, you can really stand out in the inbox.
Yep. Yep. Got it. Great. All right. It's been auto assigned to Jane. She's personalized that draft email, sent it out.
Mhm.
Where are we at now, Mark? This is exciting.
Yeah. So from a sales point of view, you kind of want to sell the meeting still. Just
Mhm.
because somebody has booked a demo doesn't mean that they're 100% committed to it. They should be, but life
Yeah.
throws up some unexpected events, priorities change. They get an email from their CEO that says, "Oh no, my friend has this other tool, and we're just gonna use them."
Yes.
So what you would want to make sure is that, depending on when that demo is, we said the 16th of December earlier on, you might want to have an automation that sends out 7 days before that demo. And that automation is another email, which can be from Jane, who's assigned, and it could be a piece of content. You want to add some value. It could be talking about kind of thinking off the top of my head here, use cases, how people have used the product or software, success stories, how customers have successfully implemented it. It
Yes.
could be a podcast interview that your CEO went on to talk about the awesome journey that he was on to build the company, and why he does it. What's the mission, vision, values? And again, you want to state that you're looking forward to speaking to them next week. So I think we sometimes celebrate too quickly in sales that we've got a meeting booked. It's a close. It's a done deal. But think about it. That prospect may be speaking to three of your competitors, and they had demos a lot quicker.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
And
a very yeah.
Mark, I love it because you don't know what you're up against, and they don't either unintentionally. They
Hmm.
scheduled, and like you said, life just happened. They walk down the street, walking their dog just like they do every day. Somebody happens to be on the bench, has another dog. They're talking about
Hmm.
dog stuff. Then the next thing you know, they have software. They have
Yep.
an idea, or maybe they're in the same industry, and that person can show them right there on their iPad. Hey, let
Yeah.
me let me show you. You know, so
It's true,
it,
and I'm
it
sure it's
lets
happened.
all the time, all the
Yeah.
time, right? Dynamic nature of it. So what I love about these pre-event reminders is that it reminds them. It stays on top of their mind so that even if they're entertaining something else, because oftentimes there's not just one solution somebody's looking at.
Hmm.
You know, recency bias kicks in, right? I wasn't even aware of CRMs. So then I go and went to this website and signed up for this CRM demo. Then all of a
Hmm.
sudden, I start seeing CRM stuff,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not talking
Hmm.
about remarketing and retargeting. My ears are now trained to it. I never
Yep.
realized my friend works for a CRM company. I didn't realize.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? So it makes it extremely necessary to make sure that you stay on top of their mind until they show up to that event, not just not just from a value perspective so that you can maintain the excitement, but just to keep them on the right track. They don't want to
Absolutely.
fall off. I think if people understand, people don't want to get lost. They
Hmm.
want to find the right software. It's
Yeah.
just hard. There's just too
And
many distractions, you know?
and that goes back to the point about being the guide, because everybody's looking for that guide,
Being the
whether it's a
guide.
personal
Yep.
trainer to lose weight or get stronger, whether it's a professional coach to speak better. We're all looking for guides in personal and business. And you want to position yourself as that guide that's likable, that's known, liked, and trusted. Chris, something I didn't share is, well, I started to. So when I said about put your personality in it and just stand out a little bit, in my calendar appointments that people
Mhm.
book calls with me for speak on podcasts, the calendar title in the meeting isn't Mark, Chris, or conversation with Mark. I've got a fire emoji, a podcast mic emoji, and it says podcast strategy call with
Mm,
Mark and Chris, for example,
yep.
because I know what it's like as a buyer to look at my calendar and go, Chris, Chris, Chris rings a bell, but not quite sure if I remember what it is. And that's what your buyers are going through, right? They've got so many
Yep.
things on their plate. So you want to make, again, like we talked about the automation almost with the paying your internet bill, just make it one click.
Yep.
It's that removing the thought, removing the people that don't have to force people to think.
Yep, absolutely. All right, great. We got the reminders going out. They scheduled the demo. It's assigned, the reminders, testimonials, FAQs, just every value,
Yeah, value,
going
value,
out.
value.
What's next?
Chris, it's demo day. It's time to do the demo. I won't go into best practices on delivering demos,
Hmm.
but let's just say you're making notes as you're going through the demo. You're writing down, you're asking questions like, how are you going to measure the effectiveness of this? What does it mean to you to be able to solve this? What other people are you looking at? All of these good discovery questions that you would ask on a demo,
Hmm.
and you're making notes of those. Once you hang up or you click leave the Zoom meeting, you now should be sending them a follow-up email. And this is where you have a template which is ready to go. It has 95% of the information, but it just has a few fields
Mm,
for you to add in. So those fields might be that person's name, it might be the company name, their objective, and their measurement outcome. Again, just following this made up
yep.
example.
Yep.
Um, so when you come out of that meeting, you go straight to your email client, you click new message, you select the template. You could use dozens of tools to do this. And it asks you to put in their name. So I'm going to put in Chris, and it's going to company name. And I'm going to say the Speak On Podcasts, the company name. And then the objective is to increase brand awareness and drive demand for my new show. And then how am I going to, the measurement outcome is organic traffic and also landing page. Just say these are just examples I'm
Yep.
making
Yep.
up. That information that you've just typed into a small box gets merged into the email that you're sending, which is a follow-up email to say, hey, Chris, thanks so much for your time today. Really great finding out more about you and your journey with Speak On Podcasts. So it's pulled in the
Yep.
company name. Like, I'm
Yes.
pretty confident that our service, product, solution can help you achieve your goals of increasing brand awareness and generating demand. Here's what we discussed. And then obviously you want to include the other merge tag in there as well. Again, it's almost automated. You can see that there's a manual because
Yeah.
you could automate it to say meeting done, send email. And that's what I bet 99% of my competitors are going to do. So
Yep.
I'm going to take just 5 extra minutes to customize this and make it relevant for my customer so that my prospects, so they feel special.
That's exact. And you're talking about that human blend, human and automation blend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where authentic marketing comes out. That's
Yeah.
when people don't feel like it's robotic or, you just sent this to me like you sent to everybody else. And what I especially like about this is, Mark, there's no shame. If the strategy worked earlier in the customer journey, use it again. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen this. We've seen the template that Jane used to
Yeah.
personalize and send out. You don't have to always do, oh, I did that in the beginning. I can't do that same automation later. Yes,
Yeah.
you can. And in
Yeah.
fact, it's got even more value later. The same move is more
Mm-hmm.
valuable later because now they're closer to the sale, you know?
Definitely, definitely. Sometimes I talk about LinkedIn marketing, and people are like, "Oh, how often should I post more than one time a day on LinkedIn?" And I'm just like, "You're the only one that knows how many times you're posting on LinkedIn. No one sits on your profile and has a look and counts and goes." Oh, what's Chris up to? He posted 3 times on Thursday. Like, it
Yeah.
just doesn't happen, but we get in our heads sometimes. And I often say within my team, and I was like, everybody's free to do whatever they want as long as their mum or aunt would be happy if they saw what they did. And no one's going to die as a result or consequence of the action. Like, everything else is fine. Just make sure it's good and it's not harmful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when it comes to posting on LinkedIn, do it as much as you want until people tell you to stop. Um,
All right.
so we've done the demo. We've sent a follow up. So there's a few automations that you could have here, and as you can see, we're using marketing automation software, but it's enabling the sales team at the moment. So you would want to make sure that you're updating your sales pipeline so you know where this person is in their journey. And also what you'd want to do is you want to make sure that there is almost like a lead nurturing sequence happening after the sales process, the sales demo has happened. So that might be, again, showing additional value,
Yeah.
showing specific use cases that customer, that prospect spoke about. Now, let's say on the demo, they were particularly interested with a particular part of the software. Again, going from not having everything 100% automated, you can have a sequence of emails that are planned to go out, but you manually have to send it. So Jane is going to manually send the second follow-up email, but it's already teed up, ready for her to just click
Yeah.
send. But before she does that, she's going to record a video which talks through the particular part of the platform that they wanted to see,
Mm.
and then send it out. Now, as with any automation, you kind of want to have like a generic backup. Chris, I'm not sure if you've got a better word for this, but like a fallback option.
I,
In,
the exact word that I use. Yes.
okay, cool. Because that you don't want to create a template that you can't use for everybody. You need to keep it mostly, I don't want to say generic, but mostly the same with just small bits to tweak. But yeah, Jane will record that video and send it out. Now, part of another automation that you may have introduced was to assign that task for Jane. So it added to her calendar so that she knew that she had to record that video as part of the sales process. So that after the sales call, the email went out, and then the next day, Jane fires up her computer, uses Loom or whatever she's using to record the video, hits record, saves the URL, and then she has it ready to go when that follow-up prompt gives her the task to send that email.
Yeah, and look at how we're using different technologies to really personalize this. And,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're it's so beautiful because I'm seeing an orchestration of synchronous, internal synchronous activity and external asynchronous
Mm-hmm.
consumption, right?
Yeah.
So when Jane in sync with what's going on creates that Loom video or whatever video, right? The second she sends it, it now becomes asynchronous, which is a benefit to the end user because when
Mm-hmm.
they receive it, they can watch it at any moment. They can watch
Yep.
it at their time. And right when they watch it, guess what? It's personal. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is the
Yeah.
beauty of technology when you do it the right way. You can
Yeah.
truly give the person who's going through the customer journey the ability to experience it at their leisure, on their
Absolutely.
timetable, right? Oh, it's beautiful, man.
And Chris, we're all human, we're all different, and your buyers are too. Some people will want to have a phone call. Some people
Yes.
want a Zoom call. Other people. So actually, funny enough, I asked somebody about their pricing. I had a question about pricing. So I'm a really, really hot lead, and he sent me an email and said, "Cool, yeah, I can talk to you about my pricing. Here's a link to book a calendar call with me." It was a 30-minute call. I looked at my calendar. I haven't got 30 minutes spare. So I was like, if you don't mind, I won't have time this week. I'm keen to move forward, but if you want to record a Loom video or just reply with how much the pricing is, I'm ready to buy. I just want to double check this question around how many seats and how seats are assigned and things like that. And he replied, and I signed up.
Yep.
So as much as we're talking about automations, there isn't a one size fits all, but you want to kind of get everybody to 95% so the human can take over and just kind of get the deal over the line.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we're coming to an end. Let's do rapid. I have 8, by the way. I've got
Okay.
8 automations. Let's do rapid fire. The next 2, just kind of name them off. And I've
Yep.
actually got, watch this, Mark. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tips. 7 tips and 8 automations so far. So
Awesome.
I've been doing my homework as you've been going. So rapid fire, what would your last 2 automations be?
Right, let's fast forward a little bit. The person's decided to work with you. They've said, "Yeah, want to get started. Let's get started." Have an internal form that
Mm,
you, as Jane, the salesperson, fills out. She puts in the customer name, their emails, any other additional people at that company she's just sold to. Put all that information in there. What happens? Hits go. The automation goes to Slack, says, "Way, we got a new customer," and then it tags Julia, who's the onboarding specialist, for her to set up a call
mhm.
with the customer. Um, Google Docs and folders are created with the customer name so that using merge templates and everything like that, so that they're all automatically created. And yeah, you could have a string of automations to do that. In fact, that's what we do at Speak on Podcasts. So
Yeah.
one internal form, you're the trigger because it's a variable time. You can't control when a customer's going to sign up, but you can control what happens after you fill out that form. So
Yep.
we have lots of internal forms. I think my team gets a bit bored of all the internal forms, or they get lost in all of the
Oh,
different
I
forms that we
love
have.
them.
But
Oh, I
yeah,
love them. You gave me 2 for 1 there. Was the internal form that automatically assigns it to the onboarding staff and probably even, creates tasks for them, right? I mean,
yes,
that's going unspoken as we're talking. We're
hmm,
familiar with this because we know B2B marketing, but yes, use automation to generate the task for
yep,
the assignee. And then
yep,
you added, auto creation of the documents and folders. This stuff seems like, oh, you could just create a folder. Oh, I could. No, at scale, trust me, every step matters at scale. You're just,
hmm,
oh, I don't feel like just creating a folder. And if people have to do it, people get tired, people are
yep,
inconsistent, right?
yeah,
So trust me,
yeah, yeah,
you truly want to make sure that you can automate some as much of the process, right? To
absolutely.
super give the person their superhero cape. They just show up,
That's
they
it.
do one thing, and they're
Yep,
like, "Wow, I created all of these folders. I did this. I sent an
hmm,
email, and they maybe only typed 5 words, but
exactly,
all of that
exactly.
happened."
And Chris, I really want to close the loop. Right,
All
we're
right.
going to go to customer success, and then I'm not
Okay.
going to talk about automations for a while. So, customer has been with you for 3 months. Okay, so they've paid, they've signed up, they're using the product. What a lot of companies will do is like, oh, 90 days, send a NPS survey or send a
Mhm.
feedback survey. No, don't, because there's a lot of context that you might have, which you can look at from your product analytics or speak to your customer success team. Again, I'm speaking to the B2B world here to find out how the usage has been, what questions and queries have been sent in. So have a human who can understand that context, decide which message to send out. So rather than say,
Mm.
leave us a review on Trustpilot or Capterra or G2, have the human reach out and say, hey, I know we got off to a bit of a rocky start in the first month. It took us a little bit longer to integrate that bit with this bit, but I can see that your team have been using it now. Would love to find out if you have any feedback at all. Versus another email, once you've had a look at the context, to say, you guys are rock stars. We haven't heard from you
Mm.
because you just get it and it's working. But obviously, we're here. If you need our help, we're here to support you, and you can do so. Also, how is your experience going? And again, these can be internal forms. It could be good, bad, or good,
Yep.
bad, neutral, because you always want to have the fallback.
Yeah. Oh, man. These were great. So we got a bonus. We're up to 11. Mark, I can't thank you enough, man. This was great. This was a great conversation, and I saw so many parallels. The good thing about it is, I'm in all of these spaces. So I'm familiar with automating across them all, but it's always good to see the parallels in the theory, right?
Hmm.
The methodologies are change depending on what market you're in, but the theory is just solid, man. How you personalize the journey based on what they've done and what you would like them to do. And making
Hmm.
sure once you've done the thinking or once you've done a profitable or necessary action, that you then make sure that that can be repeated, without human interaction or minimal human interaction and management. So, everybody that's been listening to this, they've been listening to you break down automation in a way I've been able to sit back and take notes, man. So thank you for that. Where can people find out more about you and or your company? Where would you prefer to send them, Mark?
Sure. So the best place to reach me individually is on LinkedIn. So you can just search for Mark Colgan, Colgan. And if you're interested in Speak on Podcasts and what we do with the securing of interviews on podcasts, then you can just check out speakonpodcast.com.
Yes, and again, I am a recipient of the process. And once you start a podcast and it gains traction, there's a lot of people that start reaching out to you. So it's always refreshing when people do it in a way that's more authentic and genuine. So thank you for that, Mark. And again, thank you for jumping on and showing us how to automate the B2B customer journey with authenticity, man.
Mhm.
Authenticity, let me say, because there's many ways to automate these customer journeys, but the way that you broke it down from live chat all the way to customer success, man, I can't thank you enough. So I'm glad the listeners this was probably right on time, man. This was probably, Chris, when are we gonna do more B2B? Here you go. Here's your B2B. So can't thank you enough for it, Mark. So greatly appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, always a fan of talking about automation with another automation pro.
Yes, I've gained a brother in arms in the automation battlefield now.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, man. And I'll see you online.
Cheers. Take care, Chris. Bye.